What's going on over at OpenAI?
What should founders learn about this?
All right, welcome to another episode of the Generation AI podcast, episode 6, where every week we break down the latest trends, tools, and strategies in AI. So if you're building and you're looking to separate the signal from the noise, this is the podcast for you. Mihai, from One to Hyped, where are you sitting?
Hyped as usual. We've come quite a long way. Episode 6. This week is slightly different than the weeks before because we're seeing so many cool things happening. It was quite hard to pick just a few topics out of the madness that happened in the last week and probably last quarter. You'll see why we mention this in a second, but let's get down to it. What do we have on the agenda today?
So we're going to be focusing on big companies consolidating on AI tech. Big investments, acquisitions are being made in the space. In addition, OpenAI have finally relented and adopted Anthropic's model context protocol. So we're going to be discussing what that means and why it's important. And then it wouldn't be a week in AI if there wasn't news about GPUs and how they're melting. So Sam Altman has a take that we're going to be discussing. And then finally, if we have time, and we can't guarantee that we will, but if we have time, we're going to be speaking about AGI and how companies are moving ahead towards the artificial intelligence apocalypse. But with that, let's jump into the first topic. Mihai, what have we got next up?
Sure. The reason why we're touching on this topic this week is it's the end of the first quarter of 2025, and we have some nice insights on the industry from the last 3 months. And it seems that the pattern has generally been that big companies are, let's say, arming up for the AI race or buying shovels in this AI gold rush. And we're seeing quite some big names that are big companies that haven't originally been AI first, acquiring deep tech AI startups, presumably to strengthen their AI core and to create a more...
What's the source of the information? This was quite a big hype train so far.
Yeah, so there's a few acquisitions that I want to go through based on the Crunchbase article. So ServiceNow, a company that provides enterprise software, acquired Moveworks, a company that offers an AI-powered assistant designed to enhance workflows, pretty much AI-based. CoreWeave, a company that provides infrastructure for AI and GPU-intensive workloads, acquired Weights and Biases, a company that I've been using for a long time. And I remember this company a few years ago was a tiny AI startup that people barely heard of. Now it's being acquired for $1.7 billion.
So let's break this down. Just to, I suppose, keep everyone up to speed, what does Weight and Biases do, and why have CoreWeave acquired them, do you think?
Weights and Biases, at least a few years ago when they started, I was playing with it. It was doing quite a basic thing. It was just tracking your machine learning experiments. Whatever you're doing, you were training a new model, you were doing inference, you were doing reports or experiments that just helped you track experiments in a structured way. And their business grew over time, but their core stayed the same. They just help you keep your machine learning information organized. Nothing fancy, but it seems that people started using this because they wanted a way to keep their pipelines and workloads organized. And now they're just they're a billion-dollar company. They've just been acquired. And the same goes with, the last example on my list is UiPath, the company from Romania that's doing RPA. Again, a company that started with a business that wasn't AI first since day one, acquired a company called Peak.ai. Basically an end-to-end platform that integrates data, builds models, and generates insights on how to take better business decisions. And I feel like there's almost a relation being drawn between this kind of companies. So we're seeing on one side, big tech companies, non-AI, they kind of have their deep tech AI counterpart. And we're seeing this pattern of big tech acquiring deep tech. What should founders learn about this? How should founders build proactively, given that this pattern exists?
What do you think?
Okay, so given that this is the pattern of big tech acquiring deep tech, I think this is a reminder again for founders to invest deeply into their AI infrastructure and build with solid principles from day one. So when big companies will lack the skills that your company as a small founder are building right now, you'll be prepared for an acquisition for hopefully more than 1 billion.
Yeah, I mean, I think the situation with the acquisitions is kind of, I mean, we saw this a lot with I suppose the move from on-premise software to the cloud, right? So Oracle, I was working at Oracle back in 2016, 2017, and they were still trying to transition to the cloud then. But now they have the third largest cloud, public cloud in the world, I think. I think it's Microsoft, well, maybe fourth. So it would be AWS, Microsoft, GCP, and then Oracle, right? But they got there eventually. So we'll see this time and time again. And the reason why this typically works, the reason why it makes sense for pre-AI companies to acquire AI companies is because they already have the distribution channel. They already have massive marketing teams, massive sales teams, tens of thousands of customers ready to be upsold these products. And so they just bolt on the technology and sell it through their distribution channel. I think I think particularly with the likes of ServiceNow, where they're acquiring businesses that are already accretive to what they do already, it's kind of like a no-brainer, right? If ServiceNow was acquiring an AI company that was completely non-related to process automation, then you would think, okay, this probably isn't a good acquisition. But the fact that it is so complementary to what they're doing already and is just the AI layer of process automation, that acquisition makes a lot of sense.
That's why I said you can almost draw some lines between the big tech and the deep tech, because it
Yeah.
feels like each deep tech, at least the ones that we've spoken about, found their, let's say, sister company that's doing deep tech AI in the same business and is complementing, as you said, their core business. But do you think this is maybe a pattern of small companies struggling to be competitive, or is just a coincidence that we're seeing deep tech being acquired by, let's say, bigger fish?
I think it's all about distribution. I think people overestimate how important products are. And that's a controversial take. But going back to the Oracle example, before Salesforce came along, Siebel was the most used CRM platform, Oracle Siebel, and it was by all accounts a terrible product, but they had fantastic distribution. And so most of the time, single product companies end up getting consumed by platform companies because platform companies have way better distribution. So most of the time, it's just about economies of scale, right? Can you turn a product company into a platform company while your unit economics are still viable? Most of the time, product companies end up getting consumed by platform companies because they can't get viable economics of scale, at scale.
Nice. I like this take. And let's say, given what you just said, if you would be building a company nowadays, how would you be proactive around this kind of distribution concerns?
I actually think it's really interesting what we're seeing at the moment for company building and AI in general, because since 2008, I think it was like around maybe say, I am actually going to Google this. I want to find out exactly when Mark Andreessen said software is eating the world. Do you know when he said that?
I don't know the exact date.
2011, right? 2011 is when he said that. So 2011 is when Mark Andreessen said that software is going to eat the world. And if you look at every major software company that's been built since then, it's basically been built on the Mark Andreessen model of building software companies, which is you find product market fit relatively early on, and then you raise $400 million over a series A, B, and C round. You hire 400 engineers and 700 developers, You hire 200 salespeople, you hire a 30-person marketing team, and you go from a small office in San Francisco to a global go-to-marketing presence in 3 years. And it's really easy to do that when interest rates are at groundbreakingly low levels, like 1% or 2%.
Isn't this a VC game?
It was the VC game, right? And that was how you built companies, is that, the likes of Andreessen Horowitz can borrow money basically at 0%. And so they can fund these companies that are massively unprofitable for the first 5 years of their existence because money is essentially free. But now we're in a totally different ballgame. Not only are interest rates at 5, 6, 7%, but they're not going back to where they used to be either, because inflation's too high. So the whole model of building a company has fundamentally changed because the whole model of funding companies has fundamentally changed. I think we're going to see companies built lean. I think we're going to see companies with positive unit economics from day one. And I think we're going to see companies that have much smaller sales and marketing teams. And yeah, I just think we're about to see a massive change in the way companies get built. I also think that founders are thinking about how they dilute very differently. If you listen to various investing podcasts, very few founders want to give up more than 10% in a single round now.
Even
We're
10%
living
is crazy. It's crazy high.
It is. We're living in an era of tight capital, and I think that completely changes the picture of what it means to build a company.
And it wouldn't be a Generation AI podcast if we don't talk about agents. So I think like agents will pretty much take over what the old ways of building companies. Instead of hiring 100 people, you would hire 10 people and 1,000 agents. I guess that's the direction that you're going to. But moving maybe to the second topic, why would agents become better in the future? What just happened on OpenAI?
Well, this is the OpenAI story, right? And I suppose a really interesting development. First of all, it's interesting from like the structure of the AI market. So for anyone that doesn't know, Anthropic was funded by or was founded by a bunch of ex-OpenAI people, right? So they left their OpenAI, started up their own company. Amazon raised they raised a load of money from Amazon. And essentially, it's a competing LLM company. So they have their own model, Claude 3.5, I think is the latest model. And they've been following in OpenAI's footsteps up until now. The irony is that OpenAI have now adopted Anthropic's model context protocol. So now OpenAI are actually relenting and adopting Anthropic standards. I'm sure we can find many parallels for this, but to introduce the topic properly, what is the model context protocol? Very boring name, but I think the implications of what this means are potentially profound, because essentially the model context protocol standardizes the way in which data is pulled from third-party applications by LLMs. So think of it as almost a decision-making mechanism where an LLM will pull data, decide what data it's going to pull, why it's going to pull that data, and essentially what the makeup of that data needs to be. Now, the really cool thing here is that now there is a standardized way for the LLM to do that across any application. So whether you're pulling a customer support case from Zendesk or a invoice payment from Stripe, there's a standard way in which you're pulling that data. And the main reason why that matters is you're now giving access to real-time data, or at least a standard way to pull real-time data. So now that opens the door to true agentic workflows where, for instance, a customer can get a customer support case resolved because the LLM is not just trained on the product data, but it can also pull the customer support case to understand the context of that case in real time. So I think that the adoption of the model context protocol by OpenAI is first of all a admission by them that this is the best way to pull data from applications into LLMs, and it potentially unlocks that next big step in the development of AI and agentic workflows in general. But what's your take?
First of all, I want to point on one thing you said, that the protocol naming is boring. I might agree with you, it's boring, but have you ever heard about HTTP, the Hypertext Transfer Protocol? It's as boring as it gets, and it's probably powering the whole internet, and we're on HTTP as we're doing this podcast. So the fact that it's boring says nothing, right? It can be very boring and extremely powerful in a few years from now, because we've seen the last 2 years companies competing with each other. We've seen OpenAI, we've seen Anthropic, Mistral, all these companies building verticals. And I hear it quite often from clients where they don't know what to choose. Should we go with Claude? Should we go with 4.0? What language model should we use? What data set should we use? And I'm not saying this is hard, but if you want to try them all, you have to build basically integrations for pretty much all of them. With this kind of protocols, of course, we've built vertically, but now we're just drawing a line that creates a uniform playing ground for hopefully as many tools, as many AI tools as possible. And now we're probably not be developing with OpenAI in mind or with Anthropic in mind. We'll be developing products, and we'll be using this protocol to just orchestrate and maybe automatically pick what's the best. And I think this is the most interesting take for founders moving forward, given this boring protocol that we're talking about. They can
boring,
focus.
I said boring name. It has a boring name.
Boring
but,
name. Boring
but
name.
what it can do, I agree with you, is very, very important and very, very cool. But I'm interested to get your take specifically, though. Like, first of all, let's say I wanted to build a customer chat bot before, right? And I'd need to pull information from Zendesk and Salesforce and Stripe in order to best assist that customer. What has this unlocked? Is there stuff that the MCP is going to enable that wasn't previously possible? Is it just going to make it easier? And what do you think are the potential implications for this moving forward?
I don't know the in-depth details of this protocol, but what I can imagine will happen is it will standardize some things in a similar way how HTTPS standardized security. When you go to a website, make a payment, if you see HTTPS, it's a sign, okay, this is good, I can put my card details in. C2PA, another standard for security. We have SOC 2 compliance. We have this, let's say, standards across different stacks. I guess this would be just another layer of safety when it comes to AI, because now let's say you gave a few examples. Integrate your Zendesk, integrate your Slack, integrate your ticketing system. And again, I'm speculating here because I don't know exactly how it works, but I see a future where we can easily integrate all those systems under the umbrella of MCP, of the Model Context Protocol, just because we know that this protocol offers enough security for us to give, let's say, away data without actually giving away data. So it will act as a AI safety system for integrating all the components you want into just one big AI flow.
So you're coming at it from more of a security standpoint, as opposed to the fact that it could or may make building easier or faster.
That's a byproduct for sure. I mean, it might. I'm not sure which one is the byproduct, but I'm quite sure building would be easier, building would be faster, and building will probably be more secure.
Yeah, I mean, I think as well, just a final take on this is that it's going to be interesting to see what is the system of record for an agentic workflow. Because the more complicated this gets, we've got so many different factors, right? You've got your own, let's think about it. You've got your own database and your own data lake. Let's say you've got Snowflake or AWS or whatever it is you use. Then you've got all of your system of record applications. Then you have all of the LLMs. It kind of blows my mind to think that there's no way the LLM is not going to be the system of record. We're not going to build agentic workflows on top of LLMs. Firstly, you're not going to want to just use one. You're going to want to use multiple LLMs for different use cases. So it will be interesting to see. You could almost see like a Microsoft size company being created. If there becomes like a Salesforce for agentic workflows, this is going to be a monster company.
I guess that's the next layer of AI. The next layer of AI will just aggregate all those verticals into a huge horizontal where new verticals will be built in the future. So I think we're coming to a point where we've had a strong foundation a few years ago. People starting building verticals, and now we have to draw again a strong foundation on top of those so we can start building again. And coming back to my HTTPS analogy, I see this as the HTTPS of AI. It's pretty much a protocol of how all these moving pieces can be LLMs, can be image generation models, can be databases, data lakes, whatever, communicate with each other in a secure and standardized way. And this, as you said, will likely enable true agentic workflows.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, let's move on to the final topic. It wouldn't be a week in AI if there wasn't a tweet from Sam Altman that we want to talk about. But what's going on over at OpenAI?
Well, as most of you might know and might have seen Ghibli images online, we'll put a few on the screen if you have not. OpenAI launched the capability in the Bayes reasoning model for image generation. And of course, we've seen image generation many years ago. It was probably the hype before language models, but now it's crazy good. It's good to a level where GPUs are melting. And I'm quoting this from Sam Altman's tweet. He's saying it's super fun seeing people love images in ChatGPT, but our GPUs are melting. While this was probably in the first 1 or 2 days open to everybody, he's saying now that we are going to temporarily introduce some rate limits while we work on making it more efficient. Hopefully, it won't be long. I recall the first day I tried this, I could just keep generating images as much as I wanted. Yesterday, I tried to generate images, and the model told me that I have to wait 3 or 10 minutes or something like that before my next generation. So it's clearly a super in-demand use case. It's melting GPUs, apparently. We've spoken a few episodes ago about if GPUs will be a limiting factor. It seems for some use cases they start to become. But the point I'm trying to touch on here is that image generation is becoming very good to a level where text on images is perfectly laid out as if you added the text in post-processing. And I want to hear your take on what kind of industries will this affect and what will be the impact on, let's say, creative industries.
I mean, put it this way: I wouldn't want to be a graphic designer. I think so. I think with all of these industries, the 1% will always remain, right? Like, I don't foresee a time in the short term where I'm going to go to a cinema uh, and watch an AI generated movie. I'm still going to want to see Leonardo DiCaprio in person, with his cowboy boots on. That's just the top end of the creative industry is going to remain. However, there is so much bad creative work that is done, whether it's the graphic design for a electrical manufacturer's website in Western Germany. There's millions and millions of creative assets created every day, and most of them are not very good. So I think that kind of 80% of creative work will go, and it will be used. AI will be the operating system for 80% of creative work, but 20% is probably going to remain with the human being, or at the very least having the human being included in the workflow.
How do you expect the quality of visuals in general change now that we have these AI companions that help us, let's say, as marketing agencies or as illustrators?
I don't know. I mean, I'd say that we're still we're still in the experimentation phase, right? I'd say for all of these agentic workflows, we're still in the experimentation phase, and very few companies are doing it well at the moment, because it's not just about, and I'm sure you've seen this in your own company, it's not just about including AI in your existing workflows, even if it's something as simple as graphic design, right? It's also about redesigning all of your existing workflows and all of your existing processes. So it's actually, AI is an amazing technology, but the blocker is not AI. The blocker is humans. Humans are very resistant to change. I mean, we can pull an article up about 11x, for instance, whereby 11x are a company that build SDR AI agents. And it came out in TechCrunch this week that 11x was essentially overstating the number of customers it has. Now, 11x, for context, they build AI SDR agents, meaning that they build AI agents that automate the sending of emails to go and find potential customers and set up customer meetings. So 11x are basically building a tool that will replace SDRs, or the SDR role in human form. And it came out that they were overstating the number of customers they had, that a number of their customers were churning. And, that wasn't surprising. But what was surprising was seeing the reaction on LinkedIn. There was jubilation. There was so much kind of fist pumping at the idea that this AI agent had failed. And why? Because they're trying to replace human jobs. And so not only are humans slow to change, but if that change means replacing your job or losing your job, you're going to be very resistant to it. So I think there's no point having this technology conversation in a vacuum, At the end of the day, it's human beings that have to make the change.
I agree with that. And you said that integrating AI is not that easy. From a technical point of view, it's very easy, right? You just use some models internally, you hook them up with your workflow, and that's pretty much it. But your people in your company need to have an AI first mindset. Because if people don't have an AI first mindset, you'll build this great tech that no one's going to be using.
Exactly.
And we've mentioned AGI. We won't have time on this podcast to discuss it, but that's a very interesting topic, because if people are afraid now of agents and reluctant to start using agents, how are they going to react in 5 years from now, where we'll see slight signs of AGI, which, for the record, is artificial general intelligence, whatever this means again, like agents. We don't have a clear definition. But I guess we'll cover this in future podcasts.
Exactly. And for this week, though, we'll leave it there. Don't forget to tune in next week for another episode of the Generation AI podcast. Mihai, I hope you're still as hyped now as you were when you began this episode. But we'll see you again next week. Cheers, guys.
See you in episode number 7. Have a good one.